I don't want to be a part of anything cool or some hierarchy. I want to be, I might be a misfit, but other people are too, and I think most people are when we don't have our mask on or pretend to be someone we're not.
Welcome to episode 21 of the Flying Football, a platform dedicated to the exploration, discussion of art, and the creative process. In this episode, I had the chance to talk to the incredible Ryan Dean Haas. Ryan is an artist based in Germany whose work encompasses a wide range of themes and mediums. Currently, he creates highly detailed pen and ink drawings that explore the way that meaning can be found from combining words and images. This is the first part of a two-part interview, so I really hope you enjoy it. The place I start with everybody, as you are going to be well aware, is tell us a bit about yourself and how you became an artist.
Well, my mom likes to tell the story from when I was in kindergarten, and everyone, like all the kids, had to draw a stick man. And it was a super easy task just to see how the kids would react. And everyone was done in 5 seconds. I was still sitting there after 10 minutes. And the people were like, he's slow. Like they were talking to my mom, he's a bit slow. Actually, what I was doing, I was adding fingernails to my stick man and paying extreme attention to detail. I don't remember that, but my mom keeps telling me whenever I draw something super detailed. So I guess they didn't see it back then. They thought I was slow and didn't do the task well, when in reality, I was doing it too well and spent too much time on details. The same way I do it now. So I think I've always been that way. I graduated in art in school. I also went to art school, so I guess I'm just an artist.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because you're self-taught as opposed to being like formally trained, like and having a degree.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to ask you a bit about that in terms of like, why didn't you decide to pursue education in art as opposed to getting a degree, for instance?
Well, when I had art class in school, or when I was in art school, I always had that talent of not doing what the teacher wanted me to do. Like I got inspired by what they told me, but then I did it my way. So I'm not really good at following those tasks, but I do my own thing. And just studying art, I think it's cool. Maybe I'm going to do it someday, but for now, I feel like it's more liberating and more creative to just do art the way I want to, and not the way that people want me to do art, or the way that's the correct way to do art, that I should do art, that all the old masters did art. Maybe I just want to be me for a little while.
Yeah, that's a really interesting consideration though, because I think there is no right way to do art. And I think
Exactly.
sometimes the formal educational system, I think it can be quite, from my opinion, my personal opinion, because I did a degree of photography, it can be quite restrictive because you're working to a certain brief or like a certain pre-described, oh, this is what you need to be, you need to get A, B, and C to pass. And I think that's not what art's like. Art is, widely creative and you're meant to be able to do whatever you want. And do you think you managed to avoid that by kind of being more self-taught and not actually doing that?
Yeah, I guess I just hate limits.
Yeah.
I also noticed that during lockdown, when all the stores were closed.
Yeah.
I never wanted to go to those stores, but as soon as they were closed, I was like, damn, I want to do that. Like I love breaking the limits, to a certain degree, breaking the rules, especially in the art world. I also do the candle wax art.
Of course.
That's something no one else does. That's something no one would tell me to do, because I got burned a lot of times doing that. It's not the smart thing to do, but it's what I want to do. It's fun. So I just want to explore and not do what teachers tell me to do.
I think that's quite interesting though, because I think it says a lot about you as a person then. So it's quite nice that your personal approach to life is reflected within your art as opposed to just being like, I'm just going to do what people tell me to do. And I think there's definitely an adage or like just the general consensus that as soon as somebody tells you not to do something, you want to go and do it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think Okay, then actually, so talk about limitations actually. So then how do you put limitations on yourself then in terms of, this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but like say if you want to create a piece of work, how do you know, oh, I'm going to do this and then not that? Or like you kind of have like a set idea. Like how do you kind of, actually, wait, let me rephrase that question. So it's like, it's a question I've asked before, which I didn't write on the list. Does the fact that art is unlimited make it hard for you to know what to create?
Yes, 100%, because I want to do everything at the same time. And sometimes I realize that I'm only one person, only one artist, and I can only do so much. Um, just a few days ago, I had an update call with my designer. She recently joined my team during the whole Jack Daniels cooperation, and I told her all the things I had on my mind. It was an endless list. I was like, okay, we have to choose like two things that we have to do for the next few months, and then we can move on to the next few things. But oh man, I just wish there was more time.
Oh wow, okay. So that's actually really interesting. I'm going to write something else down here. So what is the most challenging part of being an artist?
um, that's a good question. I guess just being an artist itself is the biggest question, because people are always going to give you a backlash and tell you not to do that, not to follow your dream. Yeah, I guess that's the most challenging part, especially the beginning. I would say just starting, taking that first step, um, especially like admitting to yourself, okay, I'm an artist, I want to do art. I think that's something a lot of people can't even do, because maybe they have the wrong friends or the wrong family, and they just won't support them. Like I have one friend, her parents wanted her to study law, and so she did that, and she also wanted to do art, but she really told them really really late, um, because she also didn't want to disappoint them. But I don't know why art or being an artist should be a disappointment, especially in these days when you can just be a YouTuber or an influencer, or you have Instagram. Like you have um, such good chances at being seen online. So I guess that's the most challenging part. And I think the longer you are an artist and the more you get comfortable with that, I think the easier it gets.
I think that's actually a really great answer. I think that's such a great answer. And actually that's an answer that no one's given me before. So that's actually really interesting. Because actually it's true, and it's something that I do discuss often with some people, is that like there is a stigma to being an artist. You know, it's even like me, it's like I don't really talk to my work colleagues about these interviews because they just don't care. I mentioned
Exactly, yeah.
I mentioned a few people, and a few people are like, okay, that's really cool. And some people are quite enthusiastic about it, and I'm like, okay. And other people just do not care. Like there was this one guy at work who was just like, oh, people shouldn't go to university for art. I think it's a waste of time. And it's like, well, for you it's a waste of time, but for them it's not a waste of time.
Exactly. We only have one life.
Just because you're boring, you want to stay at the same company for 50 years, that's your call. But like not everybody wants to do that. People want to experience the world and kind of do stuff. And yeah, you're right. We only have one life. So why would you waste it doing something you don't like?
Exactly.
You know?
I knew super early on that I want to be an artist, and I was like, nah, it can always stay a hobby. Like, you know, how can you be an artist? I mean, you get no real education, and I mean, I guess that's good, but sometimes, especially in the beginning stages, sometimes I'd love to have a mentor or a teacher who's like, okay, Instagram works like this, the algorithm works like this. You should create like that, or just some guidelines, because yeah, have um, you have to learn it all yourself, figure it out.
Yeah, you're kind of
I
left in a
just
kind
think
of an artistic limbo where you kind of have to just figure out it, and you kind of have to try things and hope they work. You know.
exactly, and I'm still in those beginning stages. I've been a full-time artist for a year now, and I still haven't set up an online shop or a website or a YouTube account. And it's all those little one-time things that you have to set up in the beginning. It's everything you have to do in the beginning just to start to get a foundation. I think that's the most challenging part.
I think. I think that's a good point, but then I also think you don't need those things necessarily because you don't have those
Yeah,
things.
yeah. No, if you just want to be an artist, you just need a pencil and a piece of paper. But if you want to go big and increase your chances of being seen and really want to have an online presence, I mean, I'm talking about myself here.
Yeah,
So I
I
need a
hope
website and an
hopefully,
online. I'm not saying that everyone needs that. It's
yeah,
just on my to do list currently.
yeah, because I think, and this is definitely something we'll talk about later, but I think being an artist is now being a business. There's almost no
Yeah.
distinction, and I think that's part of the problem. I think for for, as a kind of quite of as an outsider, I guess, as an outsider, I kind of guess, is like there are people, and actually, I've listened to this really, really interesting podcast by an artist called, I think it's Laura Horn. I'll send it to you because it's really, really good. And she talks about this like different kind of artists. So like, there's an artist that's like super skilled, and you look at their work and you just know you'll never do what they can do, and that impresses you. And there's artists who are like mentors because they show you their process and you feel like you know them. And there's another kind of artist who feels like they're your friend, but their work may not be that great, but because they're relatable, you like them more. And I think it's kind of interesting to consider that social media is not a one size fits all. I think, and it's really, really, really hard to forget. Like you see someone like, why do I use this example? But like someone like Jeff Koons, and he's like selling crazy, selling, you know, questionably good art for crazy amounts of money, and then you're a bit like, well, why can't I do that? Or you're looking at like, oh well, how does he do that? Like he doesn't. He's at a point now in his career where he doesn't even make the art himself. It's like there's a huge
Mm.
distinction between being an art and being a business. Yeah, it was also not at this moment in time. So, other than creating work, other than the actual art itself, what are the kind of
Mm.
skills and hats do you have to wear as an artist?
Uh, I I guess you mainly just have to. I mean, if you're really good, if you just want to be a happy artist, you just have to draw. You just need a pen or a pencil and paper or paint, whatever you're doing, whatever makes you happy. And then, I mean, additional tasks or skills could be being good at video editing or Photoshop. That's probably a good one. But I'm not good at that. And that's why I have my best friend, the graphic designer, who does that for me. So I guess in the end, you just have to be good at drawing and then probably have a good circle of friends who can do other tasks for you that you're not good at. Because you can spread yourself thin and master all, well, not master, but do all these tasks and skills. But you can only learn so much. You only have so many hours in the day. So I guess if you want to be an artist, just focus on art, do that, and yeah, maybe find other people to do the rest for you.
See, that's
That's my
actually
approach.
no, that's actually a really good. I'm gonna probably say this to every single answer you have, but that's actually a really good answer because again, and this is funny. Again, nobody else has said that because the idea of having a team behind you, or at least having friends or other people you reach out to do stuff, or collaborative colleagues, even that's actually something that people don't really talk about, and or that's kind of a good point actually because like I'm a one man band, and I'm very aware of it can take a lot of time to do different things. And as an artist, you want to be creating. And actually,
Exactly.
most of the artists I talk to would actually love to have a social media manager because most of them don't care about social media. They're on it obviously for the promotion and marketing, but in terms of social media itself, that it goes above their head. So the idea of collaborating with other people on skills that you're not particularly strong in is actually a really good suggestion and a really good idea. And how would you suggest going about finding people like that?
Well, luckily, I have good friends who are in that field. So, and my best friend, she studied that, and she needs work too. So I'm supporting her. She's supporting me. It comes full circle. And of course, I could just learn about Photoshop, but that takes time. It's so complicated, and also video editing. I have no idea, and it's also a big time waster,
Yeah,
especially when you're not good at it. So I just want to wake up in the morning and draw something and then be done. Posting is fun too and engaging on social media. I like that part. Just the whole editing part, I'm really not good at that, and I can admit that and be like, well, I have friends who do that for me or with me. That's cool. Sometimes we share work or she teaches me things. That's very cool.
That's great though, because you're learning and also kind of building yourself, which is a great thing. And it's all
I
for a good
mean,
cause as well.
yeah, always. Someone once asked me why I do that, and I was like, well, I could learn to fix my own bike, and but I could also support the local bike shop
Yeah.
that also
Yeah.
needs the money and that has people that learned that and are skilled to do that, unlike me. So yeah, I think it's cool to support local people, and especially in these days with the internet and stuff, it's
Absolutely.
probably not hard to find someone or connect with someone.
But yeah, actually, I think that's a good idea. 'Cause I think being an artist is very much like, even now, I guess, it's very much like a lone wolf mentality. Like it seems
Yeah,
like people very much want to be, or kind of, you see an artist and you assume that, they're like a one-man band, they do everything by themselves, they're doing all the marketing, they're doing all the art, they're doing all the business, they're doing, yeah, right, even like all the Photoshop and just everything that comes under it. And most people do, and well, not most people, but like a lot of people do, and that's nothing wrong with that. But I like this idea of collaboration because it leads to kind of bigger rewards, I guess, and also not just that, like your success is shared, and I think that's quite nice as well. Yeah, I think that's really
yeah,
interesting.
exactly. Especially since with my best friend, the graphic designer, we had art class together in school back then, back in the days, in the school days. We always loved working together, and it's I'm so grateful that we can still work together now, basically as businesses or business partners. It's super cool.
That's such a good idea. I think that's great. So, how, as an artist, do you define yourself without putting yourself into a box?
Oh well, I guess I just, as I said, do what I want to do. I don't like boxes or being put into them. Um,
But at some point, you have to, even by saying like, "Oh, I'm a pen and ink artist," you're putting yourself into a box.
yes and no, because well, yeah, kinda. That's a tricky question. But I guess I don't like to put myself into a box. What other people think I am, that's okay. That's their choice. They can assume whatever. I started drawing those circles.
Yes, which we'll
Um,
get into later.
yeah, I started those in 2019. Uh, Basically, just started those because I got a new compass and I was like, well, I'm just gonna draw circles now. And right now, I'm pretty much the circle guy or the Jack Daniels guy, but that's nothing I ever said. It's just what people see and think it's my style. Or, well, yeah, I'm the circle guy now, but
And actually, is style important to you?
not really. I just think your style, it comes to you. It's kind of like your personality. Um yeah, you just start drawing, your style evolves, and at some point you have your style. It takes a while to find it, but it will come to you at some point. But it's not really important to have a style, because everyone has one already. They just haven't found it yet.
I like that a lot. And actually, every single time in an interview, someone says something, I'm like, that's going to be their opening line. Um, that
Yeah,
might
because
just be yours.
I think style is overrated, because I spent so many years just being like, what's my style? I have to find it. Is it like drawing Disney characters? Is that my style? Well, it wasn't. My style will evolve. Is this my style right now? Yeah, but will it be my style in 10 years? I don't know. I'm just going with the flow, living in the moment. Style is nothing you can really chase, it just comes to you.
Yeah, you're actually. I like that. I like that. Like style is almost something that other people put onto you, then you put onto yourself.
Yeah,
And what I like that. That's a great idea. That's a great consideration. And actually, that makes me think about. So okay, so the thing that I like about your work, obviously, you're probably aware I like your work, which is weird because I
tell me
feel like.
more. Keep talking.
No, because so the thing I like about your work is that it's very, very like I look at a lot of art, as people can imagine, and I feel like I say this to everybody, and I feel bad because I mean this all the time, every single time I say it, and it makes me feel like I don't mean it, but I do. And so your work is very, very different from everybody's I've seen, like because
Thank you.
no, because and obviously we spoke. Well, I said we spoke. We've messaged. We've DM'd. I guess is the best way to say, like back and forth. And I think the interesting thing, I hate saying spoken, like we didn't speak. We're speaking now. The whole internet language is just beyond me. Like I know I'm not old yet, but I might as well be because the internet is like, okay, right, whatever. But yeah, I know we've obviously spoken. I know we've spoken before. Um, and the interesting thing about you is that your style, quote unquote style, or like the different kind of mediums you use and kind of just the themes you explore, they're very, very varied. And they're really kind of it's just fascinating. Your work is very fascinating. And I would say that to everybody, and I actually mean it because I find art very fascinating. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. But it's really fascinating because I was looking at, obviously you can imagine, and as I said to you, I went back through our messages, and I was looking back through your Instagram and your older work, and particularly like your
I know. I saw it. I was like,
yeah, particularly your
flying
self portraits.
football liked this post. I was like, that's a super old post. Oh shit, he's gonna ask me a question about that.
I am indeed, of course, absolutely, because and actually that's a really interesting about. Okay, but that's a different conversation. So one of the really interesting things that struck me was your self portraits. So and it's interesting because that's not what you do now. It's completely like worlds apart from what you do now. That's why I want to
Yeah,
talk about it
see,
because that's interesting.
style is an illusion. Like I like self portraits, but is that what I do now? No. Do I have a certain theme for my circles? No. I explore pretty much everything.
Absolutely. So let's go
So
back a little bit then.
yeah,
Let's take a
let's go
journey
back.
back in time. So your self portraits, what kind of initially inspired you to look at yourself within your work?
Well, some might say I'm a bit of a narcissist, and I love myself. I don't know. I really like mirrors or anything reflective. That
Yeah.
sounds sounds super douchey, but I did because sometimes when you're having a tough time, what really helped me is just looking in the mirror, looking myself in the eyes, and I just knew, okay, this guy, he can do it. It gave me strength for some reason. I don't really know, but I'm really good at calming myself down or giving myself power to go on even through like rough patches. So yeah, I just liked mirrors, but I didn't realize it until we had the topic of self-portraits in art class, and we had to draw ourselves a bunch. And then I just took my sketchbook everywhere, and in the city, in some window, I was like, oh, gotta draw myself. That's a really good reflection right there. And yeah, really explored that in different mediums like acrylic paint and pencils and charcoal and pens and lots of self-portraits. The funny thing is, if you'd ask people in art school, they'd say, "Oh yeah, he would come in, and then if he didn't know what to do, he would just take a mirror and draw himself. That would be his like go-to default. Just oh, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna just draw myself." So yeah, that's what I did for I think 2 years, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that makes me think about the idea of immortality and art. It's like those images will be there forever now because you've created them and they're online somewhere forever.
Yeah, I'm gonna live forever.
No, but like that's interesting about art, is that art is timeless. And I think we forget that because we discern pieces as being old or new. But actually, your older work is just as relevant as your new work. Someone could find your self portraits tomorrow. I looked at them today, and you did them how many years ago? So there you go. And I thought they were actually really interesting personally. I thought they were quite cool. And I think that's really the kind of interesting about art is timeless, and I think we forget that quite easily because
Yeah,
like for instance, like now you've moved completely away from that, and it's not all what you do yet. That's still a part of your journey.
but isn't it nice to just create something, even with your podcast right here? You're creating something. One day you'll die. We will all die one day, but this will remain. Something just will stay here.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely, absolutely, and it's why I think of social media as an archive rather. And I say this in every single interview. You probably heard me say this, but I think of the Fine Fruit Bowl specifically as an archive, as opposed to looking at how many views I've got today or how many people listen to the podcast today, which I'll probably check anyway because I'm silly like that. And I'd be like, oh, not that many. Um, Rather than think of it like that and be like, oh no, nobody listened to it, or oh, nobody's viewed it, or not that many people have viewed it. I'm like, okay, this is an archive. Someone will find this in 5 years' time. Someone will find this,
Shout out to all the people listening to this episode in the year 3000. We were here. We survived the pandemic so far.
So far, yeah, absolutely. So far, for sure. Because who, like, honestly, at this point, who knows what is going to be around the corner from now? Because yeah, we survived the pandemic, but are we going to survive a recession? Let's find out. You know,
But we're silly humans. We think we're talking about the pandemic and how we're surviving, and we're talking about the recession, and that at the same time we just cross the street and get hit by a bus, and
yes,
none of that
yeah,
mattered.
that's true. Actually, that's super interesting. 'Cause I was actually just listening to just before this. Actually, I'm still mostly through it. It's
You
like
did a
a
lot right
podcast.
before this. There's a long list
Yeah.
of
Oh
things you did
no, I
right
had
before this.
I was it's my day off. I've literally just consumed stuff. So I was listening to in a podcast, Artist Decoded, and the guy was talking to Jesse Drexler, who is an incredible artist. I would love to interview him. And they were talking about age because they're both like mid-30s, and they're talking about age, and they're talking about like the average age for them is like 80, so they're like not even halfway through their life yet they can get hit by a car tomorrow, and it won't make any difference. So it's like you need to make sure you're doing stuff that you're happy with. It's a great interview. I'll send a link to you because it's cool, and I'll post it on my Instagram because it's great. But yeah, okay, so let's get back to you because I've just gone on a complete tangent. Like, so actually, so this is a question I was going to ask you right at the end or closer to the end, but let me ask you now, because why not throw everything out of order already? Perfect. So what do you actually like to do when you're not creating art?
Taking walks, enjoying nature. That's a really cheesy answer, but I actually
That's a great
do.
answer.
I'm from the Black Forest, so it sounds like a fairy tale location, and it also looks like a fairy tale location. So um, I like to take walks, possibly without my phone. That's always a good sign. I mean, I like to listen to music or to podcasts, but I also already do that while I'm drawing. So sometimes it's just nice to hear nothing or just nature sounds. Walking through a forest, sitting down on some tree trunk, doing nothing, staring at a lake. That's what I like to do. What helps me to just calm down.
That's really great that you're in nature and you're outside, and that you're not looking at a screen.
Yeah, I couldn't be in a city. I just couldn't be. That's again being put into a box. That's being limited. That's a city. It's cool because you have a lot of possibilities, but at the same time, it's kind of like a golden cage. Whereas here, I can look out of my window and there's nothing for a while, just green and forest. It's nice. It's nice to look at, and there's less distraction because I can't just go out to a store because we don't have a store in this little small village.
That's crazy. Because I'm looking at my window and it's literally just buildings. And I live on a main road, so you hear cars drive past all the time. You hear people being really loud, and it's like that's so weird that you're completely the opposite.
Let me see if I can turn you.
Oh wow! Like, oh wow! I'm actually really jealous.
Literally, it's just green.
It's weird. It's weird though, because obviously I've always lived in a city, and it's like when you live in a city, you really want to be elsewhere. But when you're really elsewhere, sometimes you want to live in a city. It's weird. It's like a weird. Again, it comes back to that thing of like you want what you can't have.
Yeah, but I never wanted to live in a city. I've been to Paris, to London, to Berlin. I never really liked big cities, except for when I was in Australia. I loved Melbourne and Sydney, but I guess that's just because they have more space in general, and wider streets and gaps between buildings, just because they have the actual space to make everything more spacious, and it feels more free. And it feels like I can breathe more than when I'm in Berlin.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you go somewhere like London, it's like buildings on top of buildings on top of buildings, and it's like it's a bit much. Like absolutely.
Yeah, I really don't like that. That would totally kill my inspiration.
Some people thrive off that. Like some people really like that, and I think that's just as interesting. It's just as interesting, I think, because I think your environment affects the way you create your work, particularly if you're an artist of some sort. And I think that's what kind of makes you, because where you live is such a key influence on yourself and your personality. I think it's something people probably don't think about often. unless you're creating work specifically about your environment. And actually, would you ever create more landscape-based work?
No, I'm really not good with landscapes. I'm really not good. Just no.
Because, and actually, so this is probably, I'll probably keep this bit in actually, because why not? But the funny thing
Great.
is, so the funny thing is that I actually had quite so I've recorded your intro already, but I actually had quite
What
a
did
hard
you
time.
say?
That's the thing. So I actually had quite a hard time figuring out what to say about you and your work, because your work's quite hard to pin down, because you don't do like, you're not a portrait painter, or you're not a landscape painter, or you're not abstract, or you're not. So you're not, you're very hard to pin down, which I think is a great thing.
Yeah, me
Also,
too.
but it's also, it's so strange. So I think I just said, I can't quite remember. I wrote it down because I always have to write it down because I have to have a script in front of me when I talk because I'll forget otherwise, like now. But I think I just said that you create highly detailed pen and ink drawings about a variety of mediums and themes. I think I said something really, really vague.
You see, that's perfect. I love to be mysterious and really, really vague.
And actually, that's something I want to talk to you about in terms of like, so yeah, I guess I probably just actually answered the question for you and or just pretty much gave you the question. But like, do you ever worry that your art might be too all-encompassing?
Sorry, what?
Do,
That
so
might be too.
all-encompassing. So do you worry that like your art isn't fixed enough for people to really understand what it's about?
No, not at all. I never worried about that. I never even thought about it until you mentioned it right now. And now I'm like, is that a thing? Should I worry about this? But no, I can't really be bothered because I, I just want to do what I want to do. And with the circles, I found a perfect outlet for just drawing cool things, adding a nice quote. I have little sub series in the circle series, so I can probably speak to a wider audience. That's what I'm thinking. And some people like some circles better, and others don't like those circles. It's
Okay, so let's talk about your circle series. That's probably a nice segue
Let's
into
talk
that
about the
actually.
circles. Let's do it.
So where did the idea come from, and how did you decide upon, kind of like the structure of it? I guess is the best way to ask.
Uh, it's actually really random. I'd love to have an answer that it was everything was planned from the beginning. It wasn't. I always loved doing Inktober, and for Inktober in the year 2019, I thought I want to have something special that connects all the pictures in the series. That when people look at my account, they see, oh, it's not the only thing. There are 31 drawings of that. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna add a nice frame to tie them all together, connect them somehow. And I just recently, before that, bought a new compass. And I didn't own one before. All the circles I drew before, like not in the circle series, but whenever I needed to draw a circle, I just used Tupperware. That's a life hack for all of you out there. Just use Tupperware and draw circles.
That's great.
And then, for Inktober 2019, I just invested in a compass, and I was like, what am I gonna do to tie all these pieces together? And I was staring at my compass, and I was like, well, this seems like a nice excuse to finally use my compass for the first time. So it was completely random. You can see that the first few circles, they don't even have a text, like the motivational quote or the quote. They don't have that. They're just circles with a drawing inside. And the drawing for the first few ones only took me 30 minutes because I was also working a full-time job at that point. Whereas now I have fixed circle sizes and a nice quote, and I really think about them. And one circle takes me 5 to 6 hours to complete. So it has really evolved, but it started from just a random idea, really.
And where did the idea of using quotes and words come from? Because that's really fascinating.
What I don't like about art museums and stuff is when they tell you everything about a painting. It was painted then. The artist was not well at the time. That's why it looks so depressing. And they tell you everything, and it just takes away the magic. Um, and with a quote, you don't really say anything about the drawing, but you might make people think. I also started drawing a few circles that are related to mental health or talk about mental health. That's one of the sub-series, and I think it's so important that some people who maybe aren't well look at these circles and read the quote and can really look at the circle, at the drawing with from a different point of view. Like I can kind of make people see what I see by using that quote, but I'm not taking away too much. I'm not telling too much. I just make people think in the same direction I want them to think. I can guide them somehow.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that circles are almost like windows. So web almost becomes like a window into kind of like the idea.
That's so nice. Nicely said. I might use that. Oh yeah, that's genuinely the nicest thing someone has said about my circles, that they are just like windows,
Yeah.
because that itself is like a mysterious quote. The circles are like windows and you're like guiding me in the right direction, but you're not really telling me what that means.
Yeah.
But it's super cool, super inspirational. I might use that for future circles.
Tag me in it if you do. That'd be awesome. And not just that, I think that's really kind of the fascinating thing about your work. Okay, so wait. The question I asked you before I say this. So how do you choose the quotes?
It's pretty random too. Like, I'm still following the Inktober prompt words. So for example, I have the word fish and then I have to draw something. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm the prompt word is fish, and then I'm looking up photos of fish, and I'm like, what am I gonna draw, or is it really gonna be a fish? Can I do a pun, whatever? And then while I'm drawing it for those 5 or 6 hours, I'm like, is there a good song that somehow involves a fish or the ocean or something cryptic? And yeah, then I just always come up with something. Like most of the times, I'm like, I'm not gonna find a nice quote for this one, and then I always do. I don't know how I do it, honestly.
So do you just make them up?
No, I don't make them up. I do
Oh.
like,
Like research into them.
yeah, I put some research into them. There are
Oh.
famous quotes or lyrics, song lyrics, a lot of the time. And it's always like a little hidden Easter egg, because some people know the quote and others don't. Um, it's a playful thing, really.
That's super interesting for two reasons. One, because I'm always really interested in the idea of words and images. You tie them together because the image doesn't denote the word and the word doesn't denote the image. It's kind of like you have to really work to figure out what they mean and why this particular lyric or this particular quote refers to the image, or does it even refer to the image? It probably doesn't even do that. It's just it's just another layer of mystery. And the second thing is that it means that people are more engaged with the work because they have to look at it for longer, because they have to read it longer, and they have to read the image and the words. So yeah, that's super interesting, and it reminds me of a really, 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 really great makeup artist called Esther Romano, who I interviewed, not audio. I did a written interview with her not that long ago. Such a bad plug, but okay, it's cool. I can do it. Hey, I did it. I should actually plug my own stuff that I'm doing. So I did an interview with her, and what she does is that she does makeup based on, say, for instance, like an album cover, and she'll quote the album cover, and she'll have the makeup next to it, and it's such an interesting idea. This idea of quoting your references, you know, rather than just being like, "Oh, this is my work; it's so cool and original. No one's ever done it before." It's going, "Oh, actually, look at this. This is where I got the idea from. This is my interpretation of it." And actually, question for you then: is originality important to you?
Yes, it is. But I guess I'm nailing that anyway by just doing what I want to do. Also with the candle wax art, I think I'm already pretty original with what I do, just because I do what I want to, and it's not really that inspired by others, or like I'm copying them. I do have like loose inspirations, but I never really just, some artists just copy or steal from other artists that I really dislike, and I don't know why you do that, because I bet their style is just equally beautiful. They just have to work on it and practice and get better, and in quotes, find their style.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
yeah, but so being original is, yeah, I think it's pretty important, especially if you want to be authentic. I mean, you can't live a fake life forever, especially on the internet.
That's to be challenged, I must say. Judging about the society we live in at the minute, I think you probably can live it forever. I think that's the interesting thing about your work is I would 100% agree with that. I think your work is very original because, as I said earlier, it's really hard to
Thank
pin
you.
down.
I did everything right.
And I actually, so I have a question here, and it says, and I wrote it and I put it down, and I kind of thought like, should I ask you because it kind of doesn't actually, it doesn't really apply to you. And the question is, do you like being compared to the artists? But the interesting thing for me is that like there is nobody there really, and like generally there is nobody else I can compare you with.
You are really great at giving compliments, and I enjoy every second of it.
I know, like genuinely being serious, like not just because I'm talking to you, like genuinely being serious. There is no one else I can reference you to. Yeah, okay, there are other like quote unquote pen and ink artists that I'm sure I could reference you to. So there's no one I can really compare you to, and I think that's really interesting because obviously most artists I talk to, or most art that I just see, you can always find some kind of triangulation. There's always someone you can reference to, like Edward Hopper, for instance, is the perfect example of there's a lot of people I can reference to. Edward Hopper, right?
Yeah.
I just in case you didn't, I'm making sure, just in case, because that would have been really embarrassing if you didn't.
Thanks for checking on me.
That's fine. Just in case I ramble on about Edward Hopper, and you're like, yeah, with no idea who he is. And if anyone listening to this doesn't know who Edward Hopper is, pause this right now and go look up his work, and then pause it and listen to this, or actually listen to this whilst looking at his work. So like Edward Hopper is like a great triangulation point for a lot of artists. You see a lot of his influence in a lot of art. And I think it's interesting that I don't see anyone's influence in your art. And I think that's kind of, in a way, it's almost strange.
Well, I've never really been compared to anyone, but my big inspiration for going big with pen and ink drawings is hands down CJ Henry. You might know her.
I do not.
You do not?
No.
Shame on you. Shame.
I can't.
Shame.
I can't know everybody.
Yeah, but she's amazing. She's really I love her art so much. We even texted one on Instagram, and she told me, "You go," and I printed that out. I took a screenshot. I printed that out. I have it in a frame.
Oh wow! No, that's great. That's great.
She's amazing. She used to do these huge, and I mean really, really huge, pen and ink drawings. Right now, she's working with colored pencils instead, and it's just as stunning. She's so good at realism and hyperrealism, and I was drawing the circles when I was like, maybe I could go bigger than just A5, and yeah, so I did the self portrait with the flowers.
Yes,
you might have seen that one.
I've definitely
I did that, and I sent it to CJ Henry, and she was like, "That's so cool," and I didn't know she was gonna see it or respond. It was surreal. I love that. So she will be my forever inspiration because she's such a cool artist. Yeah, you should really look her up.
Send me a link and I'll look her up. I'll probably invite her to the Flying Football because I literally, the amount of emails and the amount of great art I see every single day. Yeah.
If you ever interview her, I will be your co-host. I will be here for
literally. Send me her Instagram, and I will tell you. I will send me later and I'll email her tomorrow. I'm not working tomorrow, so I've got plenty of time to email people. I send it to me now.
Oh yeah, this can't wait. You have to see.
Okay, no worries. Let me have
a look. Are you sure she has like 500,000 followers?
Oh, so that's a pretty funny thing. Is that like when I email artists for the Flying Football, I never look at their follow account because I don't care about their follow account. Like I don't care how many followers you have. All I care is if your work's good. Like truly, that's all I care about. You know what? I tell a slight lie. I'm pretty sure that she did a podcast she featured on a podcast not that long ago with either Artist Decoded or
that's very possible. She's been on a few podcasts.
I'm pretty sure she was on Artist Decoded not that long ago, and I started listening to it, and then I just kind of slightly got bored. Um, oops. And okay, you know what? I'm gonna add her to my saved posts, which is like probably bordering on a couple thousand at this moment in time. So how has COVID-19 affected you and your practice?
It's been great.
Yeah.
No, it really has been like it's been really shitty. I mean, everyone just wants this to be over. Especially since in the beginning I still worked my full-time job in a nursery home. I saw people die, people in pain. It's been horrible in that regard. I mean, it's a global pandemic. It is horrible. Also, my mom had COVID at some point. She's better now again, but that was a big scare. So I don't want anyone to get me wrong. COVID is terrible, and we all have to work together to end this once and for all. But for my career personally, I started being a full-time artist during COVID, and to be honest, especially during lockdowns, what do people do? They just look at their phones. They're at home. It's lockdown. They browse Instagram, and I saw that my engagement rates just spiked because a lot of people were at home looking at their phones where I uploaded pictures. So I was fine, especially with just being at home. Since I started being a full-time artist, not being in a nursery home, that was nice. Being at home, drawing all day, I had no problem with that. I think that's the big advantage for artists that they probably would have been at home or in their art studio anyway creating art. And for everyone creating online, I think it has been a good year as long as you still had the power and the inspiration to create.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing that you had the motivation to do that, as opposed to just sit at home and be like, okay, I'm just gonna browse cat videos for, 9 months. You're like, let's utilize this time. I think it gave a lot of people a lot of time to do stuff that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And I think it's good that you utilized it. And actually, that's quite a an amazing thing that you actually kind of just jumped in feet first and was like, okay, let's just go full time during a lockdown where everything is so uncertain and you have no idea if it's going to work out. And it's like you have no backup plan. I'm
I
assuming you don't have a
mean,
backup plan.
well, I mean, being an artist is always uncertain, so it's as good a time as any, I guess, to just jump in and try to make this work, follow your dreams. And as I told you, I just lived in the moment. I didn't think about where will I be in 1 year. I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna try full-time art for like 3 years, and if I made it, I made it, and if I didn't, well, at least I tried, and I know that I tried my best. So I just started creating and did that.
So, so what do you think about artists who actually do have a career plan? Do you think that's a good idea, or is that just like, yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not something you're interested in?
No, I think it's a good idea. Um, I think it really depends on your personality. I think whenever I make a plan, I usually just trash it and improvise because I'm that impulsive, spontaneous kind of guy when it comes to art. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that, but my plan could change next week or next month. I don't really know, but if you're a person who needs a plan, especially if you start to be a full-time artist and um, you just have to work. You have to be your own boss. You have to set. I'm sure you know. You're at home. You could just watch cat videos, or you could work. But how do you make yourself work, even if you don't feel like it? If you have a real job, you just have to go there. You have headaches. No one cares. You have to go to your job. Well, you're at home and you're an artist and you have a headache. Well, maybe I'm not gonna draw today. No, you have to do that anyway. And I fortunately have that willpower to do that and create anyway. But for a lot of people, I think it's better to have a plan and have set work hours. I guess that helps a lot.
That's very admirable. I think that's very admirable that you have that because I think so many people don't have that willpower to be able to just get on with stuff, because I think it's hard. We live in a society of distraction. But
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
like, the way society and the way society is we live in, like, attention is one of the most valuable commodities there is at this moment in time. So I think for you to be able to, get off your phone for a starter and just sit down and do something physical and draw, I think, even that itself, even the act of creating something that's physical in the real world, I think that's really amazing, because I think maybe it's just me being, an outsider to it all, I guess. But there's something amazing about that. You're creating something that you can physically hold, that you physically have in your hand. It's not done through a screen. It's not done through anybody else's help and guidance. You've created it yourself, and I think that's to be admired. Um, that was something.
maybe that's why I hate editing so much, because it's just
Yeah,
on a
maybe,
screen and it's nothing I can
like
really hold. Um, that's
maybe,
I heard in your other episodes that you asked about digital art. I
yes,
I used to do that back in, I don't know, 2013, 2014, but I quickly realized that it's just not for me. Because I need to touch paper, I need to feel it, I or a canvas, anything. Just I need something real. I also have an ebook reader,
yeah,
but it's it's pretty cool, but it's not as cool as holding a real book. Like whenever
yeah,
I really want to have that feeling of reading, I still have a real book in my hand,
yeah.
because you can touch the paper, you can smell the paper. It's a whole new experience.
So, do you think your this is a question I was going to ask you later, but now's a good time. But so, do you think your work translates well online?
Online?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So, do you think your work translates well online, like the details, the texture, the size?
Yeah, a lot better since I have that graphic designer on my team, because she manages to get all those details just popping. Um, yeah, but pen and ink art, I think it always translates well for like online art. The candle wax art, well, since it's so textured, you basically having drips of candle wax, and touching that texture is amazing, and you can never feel that online. But for pen and ink art, I think it's all right. It's pretty good.
Actually, let's talk about that. Actually, your candle wax app, because it's super interesting, and you have a second account which has got like 3 posts.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Like, why does it only have 3 posts? And not just that, like, why do you have a second account?
Well, I had it on my first account, but I guess my tagline is "How colorful is your life on a scale from black to white?"
Yeah,
And it, first of all, it didn't fit that tagline, and it also didn't fit into my feed. I posted that first candle wax piece with the umbrella, the super colorful one. I posted that, and it didn't get any engagement at all. Well, it did, but it performed poorly. And then I uploaded a video of that same page, and it also performed poorly. I guess people just saw it in their feed and didn't realize it was me, because it was so extremely different that they just skipped it.
yeah.
Like my usual followers who would comment, maybe they didn't like it, but maybe they also just didn't realize it was me. So I decided, okay, this is so different. I want this to be its own thing. And also, excuse me, we were talking about artists being um, a business earlier.
Yeah.
And I feel like pen and ink art, it's so strict with all the cross hatching and all the details, and it's really fine work. Uh, but for candle wax, it's way more playful. It's not even about the finished result. It's more about the process, which is why for that candle wax account, I can maybe post more videos of how I did that. Um, just lighting a candle, having hot candle wax dripping onto a big canvas. That's so cool to watch. Honestly, I'd watch that all day. I googled it, by the way. I haven't found anyone else who does that. So yeah, I love this as a more playful, more colorful guess, vacation from the pen and ink art account.
So it kind of works out. So what led you to I already know the answer to this question because I asked you, but what led you to using Candlewax as a medium?
Well, the artist Jazza once had this challenge of the month theme that was unconventional art materials or something like that, where you could participate when you uploaded a video of you using something that you wouldn't traditionally use for art. And I was like, I don't know why my mind went straight to fire and destruction and candles, but it went there and I was like, okay, let's go with that. And then I bought some cheap candles and a small canvas and I tried it and it didn't look that good. I just realized that the blobs of the candles, it shows a canvas that was too small for that kind of medium. But I was like, well, the colors are kind of nice because I didn't know if colored candles would keep the color once they're burned. I was like, do they just turn white? Do they stay black or brown or green? It's something you never think about. I actually went into the store and I was like, do these keep their color when they're burned? They were like, kid, I just work here. I have no idea. No one has ever asked me that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take 20 of these. And thankfully it worked. And yeah, that's how that started. And then 1 year later, I was like, I want to try this again, but like on 70 by 100 centimeters on a big piece of paper, and it worked. So yeah.
So the funny thing about that is that you're going to be a story that someone's going to tell. This weird guy came into the store one day. Because as somebody who works into retail, if someone came up to me and said that, and that was my response, that I'll be telling my coworkers the next day.
Yeah, no, the coworker was right next to him. I think he was trying not to laugh or rolling his eyes. I'm not sure, but I really thought about the first painting. Well, the first artwork didn't look that good, but I really thought about just going back there and it was like, I created this with your candles and you were no help. But thanks anyway for the great candles. I don't want to be rude to retail people.
No, don't be. No one should be rude to retail. Like
no,
they shouldn't be. Like I work in retail. Don't be rude to retail.
Oh, you do?
Workers. I do. Yeah, I work in a hardware. I work in a hardware store.
Thank God I said the right thing. I could have totally pissed you off right here.
I don't care even if you didn't. Honestly, the way customers act, you're like, I'm just like, you have to dress yourself this morning. How did you manage to do that? It's like people are just people. When I say people are strange.
That's the thing about why I told you I just like to be free and I do my own thing and I just don't care. Like I feel like a lot of people would be embarrassed to ask something like that. They would just quietly buy the candles or maybe not try it at all because they weren't sure and didn't want to waste money. I just did that, but then I was like, I don't know that. Sorry, excuse me, retail person. Do these keep their color or?
I mean, to be fair, I've had people ask me like random questions. I'm just like, "Are you okay?" But then again, but you are so hilariously, and I'm going to cut this out. But like now you said that actually does make me think. Actually, maybe just if that's the way you are, just because that's the way you are, maybe they're just that way because that's just how they are. Actually, now I think I'm going to be a little bit more considerate when somebody does ask me a question, rather than be like, "Oh, that's just weird." Be a bit like, "Okay, so they're obviously asking for a reason." So actually, thank you very much. And that's like sincerely, thank you very much. That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, you should leave that in for everyone working in retail and everyone buying stuff. So basically, everyone. Everyone should listen to this.
but like that's a good point actually because it's easy. Like
I also added. I need these for art, and they were like, okay, like I didn't make it better. I think. I think I confused them more, but.
Probably. I mean, probably. But anyway, getting back to the actual image. So, how did you decide what image you were going to create with the candles, though?
I immediately thought, well, first of all, back then for the challenge of the month, hosted by Jazza, I did a self-portrait because that's what I did back then.
Yeah.
It was not ideal. It was not the right thing to do. I also did it with like a monochrome limited palette of only flashy tones because it was I think it was only black, white, and some browns. Like not the best choice to go about this, but I made a mistake and I learned from it. So the next time I was like, I need something I can use all these colors for. So I went with a cityscape with some rain and some guy with a colorful umbrella, and I was like, that's perfect, especially since rain. It works very well with the drops of candle wax because
Absolutely.
it kind of looks like it's raining on the actual artwork.
Your work is mainly monochrome. Is there a particular reason for that?
Um, okay, not really. I guess that's just what pen and ink art is about. Just mainly black and white. I have I have colored fine liners, but I barely use them because they just don't look good. And even if even in my latest cooperation with Jack Daniels, um, I used some color, but they kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone to work with colors. They were like, for this one part, we would like some splashes of color, and I was like, well, yeah, I don't know if I'm your guy because I'm that black and white guy. So I don't feel comfortable doing that for a corporation. Um, they were like, but would you consider it? Could you maybe do it? And I was like, I guess I could step out of my comfort zone and try it, but
Absolutely.
you've been warned. Like it could turn out to look really shitty. I'm just warning you. This is the warning. No, I will try, and I somehow aced it.
No,
But
and you did a fantastic job. A fantastic job.
thank you.
Like you
Yeah,
really did.
without them, I'm really thankful that I told them. Like without them, I wouldn't have tried it. Because they really kind of, in a nice way, they're amazing people. It was awesome to work with them. They just encouraged me to try that, and yeah, then I did, and it felt good. It was fun. I failed a few times in the beginning because just colored pencils, they're so different to just using pen and ink. So yeah, it was a challenge. But now that I tried it, I want to do more of that. Not in the near future, nothing is planned, but I want to experiment more with that.
So you recently did a collaboration with the brand Jack Daniels. Could you talk a little bit about how that came about and how it challenged you as opposed to your other series in the ways that your other series haven't?
Yeah, it's still so surreal to me. I just wanted to start a new series next to the circles. So I was like, what can I draw that hasn't been done before? I was like, maybe watches, like a pocket watch, stuff like that. I was brainstorming, and eventually I was like, well, I've always liked like soda cans, like the good old Coca-Cola cans, stuff like that. It's like I want to make a series with that. But to make it my own, I'm gonna not use any stock photos or commercially used photos. I'm just gonna buy my own cans and crush them, take my own photos of them, edit them myself, so they're completely my own. So I don't have any, copyright infringement. Um, then I drew that, and the first can I drew was the Jack Daniels can, and I kind of as a joke said in my Instagram story, hey guys, this is my new post. Can we maybe tag Jack Daniels in the comments? And well, they did. They did comment a
Wow,
lot. Before I knew it, I had like 140 or 150, I don't even remember, comments. Everyone tagging Jack Daniels. And yeah, I guess they noticed all that spamming
that's great
because
though.
yeah, I was so proud of my followers, my community for achieving that, because I was like, it would be so cool. I spent 65 hours on this crushed can. I'm a big fan of their design. It would be so cool if they saw that, and they really helped me out there without all these comments. Without my followers, I wouldn't have gotten that deal. So yeah, they saw that, they contacted me, we texted, and again, as a joke, I told them, I told Jack Daniels, if you ever need an artist, you can always text me. I was like, wow, that sounded so douchey and cocky, and I'm sure they're never gonna call back. I just, sometimes I'm so impulsive. Uh, I just do stuff like that, and then after I do it, I'm like, well, that was kind of stupid or reckless. But one month later, they actually contacted me again, like, hey, can we call you? We would like
Wow.
to work with you if you're interested. I was like, of course I'm interested. I'm super interested. And yeah, that first phone call, it felt surreal. And then they told me about the relaunch of their new design, like all the cans are getting new designs. Would you like to join that project? You can't tell anyone about this because, the relaunch of the new design is
Of course,
supposed to
yeah.
be a surprise. Um, and yeah, that's how that whole thing happened.
So that's amazing though. And also that's really cool because you just put yourself out there.
I did. I really did. And always as, a kind of a joke. Like
Yeah.
I never really meant to achieve all that, but then I did, and I don't think I really realize it. Still, to this day, I think it's gonna take a few more months. I've worked with them for 6 months. We had regular update calls. We talked about the project, what we're gonna do, what I've done. We talked about that. We kind of became friends in that group,
Yeah, of
but
course.
still, after those 6 months, I still can't realize this whole thing happened. It's yeah, really, really surreal.
See, I think it's amazing because it just shows that you just have to take a chance. Because you, end of the day, you've got nothing to lose by having sent that message. You had nothing to lose.
No, no, that's what I tell people. Like other artists, like friends of mine, they've been contacted by brands or noticed, and I'm like, well, just text them that you could work with them if they wanted to. Just do it. They were like, no, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to waste their time.
Yeah.
I always think it's a dumb move because it worked for me, so it can work for everyone. I mean, why not? The worst they can say is no, thanks.
Yes. That's so true. That's so
If you're
true.
already in their DMs, they see your messages, they see what you write, so you might as well use that.
I agree. And, that's kind of the whole point of social media is to be sociable.
Exactly, yeah.
It's in the name, So,
It is.
so I
And
think,
that's another part of you asked me earlier about social media. Is it bad? Is it good? I think if you use it like that to its like fullest potential, it can be so good for you because without Instagram, I wouldn't have contacted Jack Daniels. I mean, how I would have done
absolutely.
that.
I mean, we wouldn't be talking right now. So,
Exactly,
you know,
exactly. So
that's it has a lot of good points, and I think I've said this many times, and you'll hear this many times, and people have heard this many times. But I'm always a bit, oh, I don't like social media. Although my mind's changed a lot recently. I'm always a bit like, oh, I don't like social media. Oh, I think it's not great. But actually, it's just as you said earlier, it's about how you use it. If you're following just if
yeah,
you're just following celebrities and making yourself feel terrible because you don't have the latest thing, then I think it's not helpful to you. But if you're building a community of like-minded individuals that are inspiring you to do more, that can only be a good thing. And I think if there's one thing that I've learned by talking to artists so far, is community is so important. It's like so
it
important.
is.
And actually, that leads me on to a question I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask you now, which is a catchphrase in every single interview, and probably many times with this one. Is so? Do you feel like you belong to an art community, to a wider art community?
Uh, that's that's a great question actually because I always love to not belong to anything because as I said earlier, as an artist, you're often an outcast or a disappointment or whatever. You get told that you are that, so you're kind of a misfit. Even in school, like you're probably not the cool kid when you're an artist in school.
I think probably
But
now you probably are.
yeah, exactly. But you have to be
Yeah,
brave to do that. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
back
the
to the
yeah.
question about art communities. Especially with my circles, when I talk about mental health, or I'm very transparent like that. Like, yeah, sure, we've all struggled with that, and a lot of people actually have messaged me, like people I don't know, like people from, I don't know, Brazil or India, and they're like, I'm going through a rough time right now, and this circle has helped me. Just that someone draws this nice image and has this nice quote that makes me think about it, and it's not all that bad, and it really helped me, and that always warms my heart, and it makes me think that, it's all worth it. I have to create more circles, because some people are looking forward to, I don't know, daily uploads or regular uploads to get themselves through the day, to get some inspiration, some power, and that's so nice. So what I will always like to say is that I have a little community of misfits, um,
I like that.
because I don't want to be a part of anything cool, or some hierarchy. I want to be, you know, I might be a misfit, but other people are too, and I think most people are, when we don't have our mask on or pretend to be someone we're not. So I just want to have this community of followers who are just misfits, and we can be, uh yeah, a group and community of people who are just that, and don't pretend to be anything more or less.
And why do you think? No, you said that actually. And why do you think that art is quite a good, I guess, medium for people who feel that way?
I think everything creative really is. I mean, we've all been there when we feel bad and listen to that one sad song on repeat. I mean,
Yeah.
music can really touch people, and so can art, or artists. When your favorite artist, when you really look up to someone, and they post something, if it's a drawing or a photography, it doesn't really matter. It can really inspire you and get you out of a bad zone, out of a bad place, and make you maybe create again.
That concludes the first part of our interview with Ryan Dean Haas. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments about it, please send me an email at theflyingfruitbowl@gmail.com, or via social media sites such as Instagram. The Flying Fruit Bowl audio interviews can be found on a variety of sites such as Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you would like to support the platform, please consider subscribing, sharing, rating, or reviewing on any of those platforms. Also, don't forget to check out theflyingfruitbowl.co.uk for daily art inspiration. And if you're a creative, please get in touch for a chance to be featured or interviewed. We always accept submissions on our website. I love finding new art to share. Once again, thank you very much for listening. And until next time, folks, please stay safe.